Today we are going to be talking about chapters 13 and chapters 14 related to our lifespan development course for this semester. So with chapter 13, we're now going to begin looking at issues related to middle adulthood. Now with issues related to middle adulthood, of course we're going to continue to look at issues related to cognitive, personality, and social development. But most importantly, we're going to be now looking at the aspect of lifespan developmental theory in the context of middle adulthood. So here, what's it like in terms of environmental and hereditary influences, in terms of behaviors, emotional, personality, and also cognitive issues related to the individual at this point in time, and also what potential changes are going to characterize adulthood at this potential point. So here, how is it that now the adaptation process is continuing on not only from birth but also to death? So here now we're starting to look at the end cycle of the lifespan at this point. So of course, looking here at biological and cultural support development is also going to be important for us and a key issue and key concept related to our readings for this week. So it is going to be very important to be looking at those particular points of view. Now, aside from that, it's also important for us to now look at the more global aspect related to the lifespan at this point in time with middle adulthood. So here, what are some of the gains and losses throughout the lifespan? So what are we going to be looking at in terms of some of the gains in terms of emotional, personality, physical, and also cognitive components related to the individual, and how are those losses going to be evident later on in life? So more specifically, issues related to language production, issues related to hearing, to vision, to speaking, and so on and so forth are going to be very important issues that we're also going to be looking at. So, and also, how is it that we can regulate some of these losses in terms of our lifespan? So how can we adjust expectations and potentially accepting the lower levels of functioning that we may have in terms of some of these potential areas? Now, if we move over to chapter 14, now we're starting to look at the aspect of stress, coping, and also life satisfaction in adulthood, which here, these are things that now start to hit home a little bit more for many of us in terms of the aspects relating to living well and also making sure that we have a satisfying life that we've been living or that we will be living in terms of the future. So what is this aspect of a well-lived life is going to be a very central component to our reading for chapter 14. So how is it that we can define these issues related to potential happiness or to what it is that we would classify as having life satisfaction? Because part of that is really going to be this measure of what we would call subjective well-being in terms of being synonymous here with the idea of happiness. But in reality, what is that aspect or what is that component really made up of? So how do we actually measure this overall life satisfaction in terms of positive and negative gains that we may have had in terms of our life? So here, looking at issues related to how it is that we actually calculate some of this information, how we assess this component is going to be very important through the use of interviews and also through the use of questionnaires, and trying to understand how our daily experiences really do affect us in terms of our ability to being able to define this idea of a well-lived life. And again, looking also related to this idea of subjective well-being is the ideas of personality and how personality correlates with this idea of subjective well-being, looking at differences between extroverts and introverts and other components related to personality as being central to our ability to define ourselves of having a high degree of life satisfaction and having this high degree of subjective well-being that we may assess in individuals. And here also the ideas of how it is that we can moderate these expectations in certain situations and trying to understand their potential effects that we may also observe throughout the lifespan. All right, that wraps up our discussion associated with Chapter 13 and Chapter 14. Please make sure to email me or call if you have any questions regarding any of the content related to this week's readings. And please make sure to complete any assignments that we have specified on Blackboard.